Thumbs down for zipper, triangle, open three. NBA terminology and play calls can seem like its own secret language. Noticing all of the different screening actions and set plays that teams can run after timeouts or for specials. There are thousands of little actions in NBA games and every possession that lead to the results we see from the box score. Today I am so excited to share a brand new course on learning NBA X's and O's from the ground up. And the best part is I've joined forces with Ben Falk from Cleaning the Glass. If you've watched any of my past NBA film rooms, you know I reference Clean the Glass stats in every breakdown, and we started this project 2 years ago to develop a course to help everyone learn how to watch, analyze, and edit NBA film. Of course, this is not just for NBA film, this is for any level of film, and the link for this course can be found in the description below as well as the pinned comment. Now let's watch this clip from the Nets and Hornets game that ends up with a wide open corner three make for the Nets. In this one clip, an 18-second possession, it has over 15 separate decisions and lessons that the offense and defense execute to lead to the wide open three. Now in my 10 years of studying the NBA, I have had to learn on the fly and sort of make things up as I have gone along since I was unsure of how to even learn X's and O's and I was just getting started out. When I started out on my YouTube and Twitter breaking down the NBA games, my whole goal was to eventually teach others how the game of basketball works at the highest level. That led to my website, thebasketballplaybook.com, and now of course the Coaches Cut breakdowns to share playbooks, film rooms, and clinic breakdowns for all to learn from. But I still wanted a better solution, and that is where we are today. This basketball course will take you from the very basics, like court locations and setups, all the way to breaking down and learning how to create film edits like a professional. The course is divided into sections that are easily searchable. The initial section is Let's Get Started, which is essentially the intro to the course, how to watch film, and some terminology. Next, move on to the basics, player positions, court locations, diagramming plays, what a play diagram looks like, and how to read it. Then we transition into full court basketball, which is literally transition. We talk about transition offense, transition defense, the difference between transition offense and early offense, as well as some pressure situations in the full court. Then we go to half court basketball, which is essentially the playing in the half court where it's not full court. Transition's been stopped, early offense has been stopped, or the ball is being brought up in a half court scenario. Talk about different setups in the half court for the offense, such as horns, different formations, and things that teams can do. Talk about terminology again, where we're labeling plays, where I go into more of a detailed breakdown of how I label plays versus how plays are called in the game. We talk about the setups in the half court for defense. That could be man, that could be zone. Talk about the different types of zones. Then we talk about the reactions, both by the defense and the offense. How does a defense help on drives? Where does NBA help typically come from? What do coaches teach? What do coaches emphasize? What do they not teach? What do they not want you to do? What does the offense do when they drive, when they kick, when they're reacting to what the defense is doing? Talk about a lot about that in the half court basketball. Next, we flow into actions. This is the most intense portion of the course. Talk about actions versus sets, what teams can do on offense and what teams will do on defense. So we start off with cuts and spot up scenarios, so off-ball actions for players cutting or players spotting up. Isolation offense, what do teams try to do in isolation on offense? Designed ISOs versus random ISOs, talk about how those are set up and what they look like, what to look for. And then isolation defense, how teams are going to counter when skilled players are going to isolate one-on-one. We talk about post-up offense and post-up defense. Contrary to what a lot of people say and claim, the post-up is not dead. It's just not as emphasized for scoring as much anymore. And we talk about how teams get the ball in the post, what they do in the post, what teams do to defend that, how they kind of counter each other. And then we move on to ball screens. The thing I love about the ball screen section is we talk about the screener, how they screen, where they screen, the types of ball screens. We talk about overall ball screen defense, the on-ball defender, the screeners defender, the off-ball defenders. We go really in depth because the ball screen is one of the most important part of watching any sort of film and breaking any sort of NBA game down. It's centered around the ball screen. Next, we go into handoffs, which is similar to ball screens, but we talk about the subtleties between the two and how handoff offense versus handoff defense is set up. Then we go into off-ball screens, which would be like pin downs and stagger actions, the basic versions all the way up to the most complex, and then how teams are going to defend all of those actions. So we've learned all of that, and then we learned how to put it together. What the action combinations look like, what those terminologies look like. We talk about horn setups, delay sets, pistol, weak, strong, dive, floppy, loop, some after timeout specials, baseline out of bounds, sideline out of bounds, and the differences between the two, and kind of all encompassing what you've learned, kind of adding it all into those sets and those setups. Then we go even further than that and talk about the why and then how to apply it. And then the technical details, which is getting and watching the film. So how do you record the film? How do you watch the film? What are you taking notes on? Recording and editing videos. So this to me is my favorite part. I get to show you how I record and edit a video. I get to show you how to edit an annotation video, so the advanced version where I show how to highlight, how to glow, how to put text on the screen, and then as well as me drawing up plays. So the drawing up plays in fast draw, as well as drawing them on a board. Like if I'm as a coach in high school, how do I draw up plays on a board for the kids to see? And then how do I take notes if I'm like scouting, or if I just have a notebook available, and give you all of those scenarios of how to draw up plays. So that is the overall course breakdown. Now let's go back to that clip from the Nets and the Hornets. Once Kevin Durant grabs this rebound, the Nets are now in transition offense and the Hornets are in transition defense. Everything in transition is covered in the full court basketball section. That's dealing with transition offense, transition defense, as well as early offense and pressure situations. Now the Hornets do a great job of getting all 5 players behind the ball, and now this leads the Nets to run a Kyrie and Kevin Durant ball screen. The Hornets switch this action, and the Nets now have the advantage with Rozier on Durant. We cover all of these ball screen offense and defensive situations and scenarios in the action section, with switching being part of that breakdown. Now this now leaves the Nets to ISO Kevin Durant against Rozier. We can see Kyrie waving Luolo Cabarrot out of the corner to empty one side of the floor and allow KD space to ISO. Isolation defense and isolation offense is all covered in the action section as well. Off-ball actions, we can see the Hornets looking to possibly switch Rozier off KD here, but they cannot do so without leaving KD wide open for a shot. A subtle thing that we really hone on in isolation defense. The Hornets then counter this by having Martin staying on the strong side to help on any drives. He has to avoid the 3-second count, of course. Once KD notices this, he skips a pass to the opposite corner as Allen is setting an off-ball screen versus the help the helper, the man now caught inside of him. Off-ball screens as well as help the helper scenarios are all covered in the action section and the half-court basketball reaction section. Now hopefully you can see why these NBA concepts and X's and O's feel so complex, because this 18-second clip has so much going on in it that watching a full game with over 250 total possessions, it can get overwhelming very quickly. And one of the most exciting parts about this project is that I'm also able to share my process for recording, watching, editing, and how I draw up plays for my own personal teams and playbooks, as well as tips and tricks when starting these projects for yourself. I get to share what I've learned and the mistakes that I've made and what I've learned from over the course of developing my process. I look forward to your feedback and helping others learn to appreciate the intricacies and the finer details of NBA X's and O's.